I'm so excited to tell you about one of the newest sponsors of SPTV, and that is Ekster wallets. My biggest complaint with all the slim wallets that I've used is having to take all the cards out, select the card, and put them back in. Not with Ekster wallets. I don't know how they do it. It doesn't fall out. I am in love. The other thing that I'm in love with is this tracker card. Thin as a credit card. Find your wallet anytime, anywhere using the Find My app on your iPhone. I like to keep the card right there in the cash strap. Room for extra cards here if you want, room for extra cards here and you want. I like to keep mine as thin as possible. This is their Parliament model, classic brown color, but check out their website. They've got tons of designs, tons of colors, but don't forget, use my custom link and use the code SPTV for up to 55% off. One of the best ways to support this channel is to support our sponsors. So please don't forget, use my custom link, use the code SPTV to get up to 55% off for Ekster's Christmas sale. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. We are going to have some fun this Friday morning. One of the weirdest things about Scientology is they do not have a spokesperson anymore. Anybody notice that? You have never seen anyone from the Church of Scientology sit down with a journalist and do even a print interview, much less a pre-recorded video interview, much less something live. I think the last time Scientology had a spokesperson willing to appear on camera was Tommy Davis, the Tom Cruise lookalike, who, God, was it 2004, 2005, 2006 was around the last time we would have seen Tommy. Tommy had to escape from Scientology several times. He has left the C organization. He is now out of Scientology, but when the media contacts him, he pretends like he's still in, but he's not. He's out. He's very, very, very much out. Okay, so and Tommy Davis was an absolute disaster as a spokesperson. Before Tommy Davis, there was Mike Rinder. Before Mike Rinder, there was Heber Jentzsch. And I'll tell you, what we're going to do today is a live reaction video to Heber Jentzsch making a live appearance on the Donahue show. Now, Heber Jentzsch officially is still the president of the Church of Scientology. Sure, nobody's seen him for 20 years. Sure, he's almost 90 years old, and he's actually confirmed to be in a nursing home at this point. But normally, if your public spokesperson / president is extremely old and incapacitated, you would just say he's retired and name a successor. There is, other than Heber Jentzsch, which I wonder if Scientology would even confirm that Heber Jentzsch is no longer officially the president. I'm actually not sure if they would say that he is or is not the president. But even if they say he's not the president anymore, they will not tell you who the current president of the Church of Scientology is. And that's because there isn't one. They won't even say, well, there's a vice president. And I'll tell you why they won't say that. Because if they say there's a president or a vice president, they would have to produce that person to the media, because that is supposed to be the public spokesperson of Scientology. The reason we're going to do this video reacting to Heber Jentzsch on Donahue is we're paying homage to a day long gone when Scientology was actually willing to send someone out and sit in the hot seat and take the fire the way leaders are supposed to do. I actually just watched this video for the first time this morning, and to be honest, I didn't even watch all of it. I'm about halfway through it, and I said, you know what? Let's just do a reaction video to it. It's so entertaining. Watching the video this morning, I could not help but be reminded of times when I have seen in the media, whether it's I think for a long time before the Super Bowl, the sitting president used to always sit down and do an interview with Bill O'Reilly. So I remember watching interviews of, Barack Obama, the leader of the free world, sitting down for like an extended interview with Bill O'Reilly while Bill's just essentially insulting this man to his face. And Barack is just sitting there, taking it as cool as a cucumber and responding in his own way, not being fazed by the fact that he's being confronted by someone who is trying to make him look bad. And you go, God, man, the nerve that it takes to be able to sit there and take that. I've seen more recently, we can talk about Donald Trump sitting down for interviews with anchors of networks known to be hostile to him. Trump sitting there knowing full well that the interviewer is just going to say the most horrific things, ask the most loaded questions. And I've asked myself, I'm like, why do these presidents even bother to sit down and take this shit from people? And, you know, one of the answers is because that's what a leader does. It should be okay to sit down and be confronted with some of the worst things someone has to say about you and to just respond. Scientology used to be willing to do that. When Heber was the spokesperson, that's what Heber did. And that's why I want to react to this video. Now, later on, when Mike Rinder replaced Heber as the official spokesperson, Mike would sit down with the journalists, but Mike's job was to attack. And what's really interesting here is that Heber doesn't attack. Heber doesn't attack at all. And that I was really blown away by watching this video. It's why I wanted to share it with you. It's somewhat of a long video. It's 43 minutes. And I was like, you know what? We got time to kill. Let's just do it. So let's see. What we're going to look at, the video that we're going to look at comes to us courtesy of the one and only Mark Bunker. You can find his YouTube channel at Xenu TV. And he's been uploading a lot of really old gems from the archive to his channel lately. And let's just have fun with this, guys. Let's do this together. God, this is going to be so much fun. Here we go. And I'm going to stop and interject, but I'll try not to do it too much. But you know me, I can't help myself.
Well, what is the Church of Scientology? You've heard so much about it. Everybody says, boy, you don't want to say anything bad about the Church of Scientology. They'll sue you. Like that. Well, let's see if we can get through this hour. This is Reverend Heber Jentzsch. Reverend Jentzsch is the president of the Church of Scientology. Let me tell you everything I know about your church. Take me about 10 seconds. Go ahead. If I present myself to a Scientologist, I am audited in the sense that I am encouraged to sweep away from my mind all those pictures of my past that may be getting in the way of my full potential. You call this the part of the mind that's called the reactive mind.
That's right.
Through our lives, then, we record, even subliminally, perhaps, or subconsciously, perhaps negative things, whatever happens to us throughout our life. And the idea of the...
Is that John Carmichael in the audience? For any of you old-time Scientologists, is that John Carmichael? John Carmichael later became the president of the Church of Scientology for the East U.S. And it would make sense that they have the audience seated with Scientologists. That, to me, looked like John Carmichael. Hold on. Although, honestly, in this, I don't know. Oh, hold on.
Our lives, then, we record, even subliminally, perhaps, or subconsciously, perhaps negative things, whatever happens.
That is absolutely John Carmichael. So anyone in the live chat, let me know if you agree with me or if you know it's definitely not.
To us throughout our life.
Powerlized to Paralyzed says, yep, that's him. Look, I like how he's actually, they're zooming in on him like he's one of the skeptical people in the audience. That guy is a senior Scientology executive.
And the idea of the auditing process within the Church of Scientology is to erase that so I can get on and be who I am, be happy, be healed with myself, and be a wonderfully productive human being. How am I doing?
You're doing great.
Now, this sounds Freudian to me.
Okay, I just have to jump in. First of all, how freaking awesome is it that Donahue started out the entire interview by steel manning Scientology? And I'm just going to shamelessly self-promote the interview that I did with Lex Friedman. Because in that interview with Lex, I started out by saying, let me start by explaining Scientology to you at the most fair way, the way a Scientologist would, as fair as possible. Other than the fact that it's an international multi-billion-dollar family-destroying human trafficking cult. Let me explain it to you the way a Scientologist would. And I said to Lex, since Scientology will never send anyone on your program to talk about it themselves. And he said, I disagree with you. Now, by the way, when I had walked into Lex's place to do the interview, he had just told me that he'd received word that he was going to be able to interview both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And he's also said that again recently on Twitter. He's going to interview both Putin and the head, is it Alexei? Who's the head of Ukraine, guys? Zelensky? Is it Vladimir Zelensky? And I said to him, I said, you will get 10 interviews with Vladimir Putin before you'll get one interview with anyone from Scientology. And he says, I disagree with you. And I said, I hope you're wrong, but I'm right. And anyway, I lost my train of thought. Let's get back to the video.
Well, I think the difference is this, Phil. Scientology or Dianetics, for example, when we're dealing with the reactive mind, we're dealing with something that's very, very precise. And what Mr. Hubbard discovered was he discovered the basics of what the mind was. The mind is composed of pictures, and it has a very precise approach to dealing with that.
Right.
And those moments of pain and unconsciousness, those moments where there were thwarted goals that were destroyed or they're sort of holding you back,
Right.
that feeling of I'm worthless, I can't really go on, I can't do this,
Right.
or I'm afraid of going here, I'm afraid of going there. Those are reactive mind concepts. The difference is this, that you can go in and you can find precisely what those areas are and deal with them. And we don't tell a person what he should think. We don't invalidate him. We don't tell him what it should be.
Right.
He discovers it himself as he is sitting there in the counseling process, which is called
Sorry,
auditing.
guys.
Auditing meaning one who
Why won't
listens.
this go full
One
screen?
who listens.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go.
How long is the session?
Depends on the individual. It might be a half hour. It might be an hour. It might be an hour and a half.
Yeah. Here's the problem, as I presume to tell you nothing. Reverend Jentzsch.
You are a fabulously successful business operation. We are talking hundreds of millions of dollars. How much, just may I ask, would the auditing session for me cost?
Well, if you were trained, first of all, let me just say.
I'm new. I'm just showing up.
Let me just say, first of all, Scientology is a religion, and it is recognized as such
By the
around world.
IRS after many lawsuits and long litigious days and nights.
40 years of a long.
So you are a religion.
And fully recognized as a religion.
And you are tax exempt and entitled to all the rights and privileges obtaining thereto.
And guys, that means this interview did occur sometime in the mid-90s. Now, one of the reasons that's interesting to me is that I, in my whole time in Scientology, was never aware of this interview. The only interview we were ever made aware of, and we were made aware of it constantly, was the one that David Miscavige did with Ted Koppel on Nightline. But that interview was actually kind of a disaster. This one here, even though I'm sure Miscavige would say that he controlled Ted Koppel and controlled the conversation better than Heber Jentzsch is controlling Donahue. But the point is, your job as the guest isn't to control your interviewer. I would argue that this interview with Donahue makes Scientology come off much, much better than the interview with David Miscavige and Ted Koppel did. But we were never told anything about this interview. Plus, the footage looks really, really old. But because they're talking about the tax-exempt status, that means this interview occurred after 1993. I actually tried to Google what the actual date of this interview was before I started, and I couldn't find the actual date. But we're talking about something in the mid-90s.
That's correct, as other religions. And by the way, that was the most exhaustive examination in the history of the Internal
And
Revenue
you
Service.
won it. You are a church.
That's right.
Praise the Lord. Incidentally, is there a Lord in this church? We'll talk about that in just a moment. When we last got sidetracked, I was asking you how much you were going to charge.
Well, a person can come in and he can pick up this book, Dianetics.
Right. I've seen the ads.
And he can learn how to do it. What does it cost him? It costs him the price of a book, or he can go to the library and check it out.
Right. But if he goes to be audited from a member of your church, if I go to have an auditing session, how much is that?
It might be $150 or $200 an hour.
I couldn't believe he answered the question. Honestly, when I was watching the video this morning, I was like, one, I can't believe he answered the question honestly. Two, I can't believe that was the price of auditing 30 years ago, because that is still the price of auditing today. So literally, even in the lowest level Scientology organization, for a 12.5-hour block of auditing, it is $2,500. $200 an hour is the cheapest it is for professional auditing. That's freaking expensive. I was blown away that he answered the question honestly. And I was blown away that honestly, that's expensive today, guys. So it was more expensive 30 years ago. Just absolutely incredible.
By people who are fully trained and want to do that.
Right.
Or it costs nothing when the individual trains to help the other person. A lot of people want to do it just where they counsel each other and they learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't cost anything
Right.
to do that.
Right.
And that's a lot of the way that people do in Scientology.
Yes. But you also charge $1,000 an hour.
We know.
You may charge, I think you get a 12.5-hour session for $12,500. And then after I'm audited, I am then encouraged to go and seek a higher level, which the Church of Scientology will assist me in doing for a higher price. Pretty soon, I'm moving up a ladder. Here's the wrap on your church, Reverend Jentzsch, and I do not presume to be telling you anything. So for the record, we're pleased that you're here presenting yourself, I think, for one of the rare times on a live TV experience with all kinds of taxpayers out here ready to question you as well. Hooray for your presenting yourself here at a public forum. Thank you for being here.
And let me just say that the person who is getting counsel and the people who are Scientologists do not complain about the fact that they pay money and they do contribute to the church. It's the people who are in it. They don't find a problem with it.
Okay. Again, I'm blown away by, well, first of all, what Phil Donahue just said is actually not true. Auditing never costs $1,000 an hour. But Heber Jentzsch was not so wrapped up with correcting every little inaccuracy or insisting on Heber Jentzsch didn't even call bullshit on him. Like, and that's sort of what struck me as I was watching this is post Heber Jentzsch, all of Scientology's interactions with the media are very confrontational, very adversarial, very defensive. And Heber Jentzsch, it was just a totally different thing. And it's amazing. Scientology, you know, these days, they hold themselves up as this idea that how dare anyone question them? How dare anyone try to direct any criticism at them whatsoever? And that attitude that they're above everyone and everything is reflected in their response. And yet here you have Heber not even bothering to correct something that Donahue said that was pretty egregiously wrong. And he just let it go because it just didn't matter. Guys, instead of waiting to respond to all of the starred comments at the end, since we're going to be going for a while, let me just quickly tackle the ones that have been starred so far, and then we'll carry on. George Massey, I know someone that can make an interview with anyone you want to hear from happen. Just saying. Oh, interesting, George. You have my interest. Lydia Von Stretchclaw, I heard he was in one of the care homes and his family couldn't get to see him, but that was a good couple of years ago. Yeah, for Heber specifically, he was not sent off to just one of those homes. He's been in a nursing home for a few years now. It's possible that before that he was in some house, but yeah. George Massey, the last settings and reports on Heber were not good. He was in rough shape a few years ago. Yep, absolutely. Power lies to paralyze. Heber's current cognitive state and whereabouts are a mystery. I hope we get some new info. I very much doubt we're going to get any new info until we're getting an in memoriam obituary, is my personal guess. Samantha Askey, lovely to be able to join you from the UK. Welcome, Samantha. Happy to have you here. Mercedes, good to see you. I remember Heber Jentzsch from the FLO. I always rode the bus with him from the HGB to the Birthing Building Post. He always had a very humble demeanor. I never had the pleasure of meeting with him or speaking to him. I understand, first of all, he's a very large guy. I understand he comes from a very large Mormon family. And I understand he's got some incredible stories. Just one of these guys who's just got amazing stories. Old Frizz says, love wise beard man. Absolutely. Tina Marie, OMG, Phil Donahue is a blast from the past. Old Frizz says, Heber seems like he was a good speaker. Yes, and that's pretty much all that was expected or needed from the president of the Church of Scientology. He was a very good speaker, and that was his job. And I just think it's really noteworthy that they've never bothered to put on a new president. Honestly, you would think that if you were David Miscavige, right, you would want someone else whose job it was to go out there and take the arrows and sit in the hot seat. And I don't know how much of it is just because of David Miscavige's paranoia that anyone in Scientology might accumulate any supporters or admirers, or have someone basically anyone who would compete with Miscavige for the attention or the adoration of Scientologists has been completely eliminated. And Heber is one of those people that Scientologists really, really looked up to. And I think that's one of the reasons he doesn't appoint a new president, even though it would be wise to do so. Send someone else out who's a skilled speaker. But nope, he cannot do it. Xenu Golf Club, I'd pay good money to see Pat Broker interviewed. Yes, so would I. Lydia von Stretchclaw. Yep, Heber had more charm than Tommy Davis. Admittedly, that is not hard. What Mr. Hubbard discovered was to make money by founding a cult. Mercedes, I remember they were telling us that Ted Koppel is a suppressive person. Yes. Poof 911. Who was the last Scientology mouthpiece to be in a sit-down interview and when? Was it Monique Yingling, Tommy Davis? It was probably one of those two for sure. Whether it was Monique, I mean, it was all pretty much in a similar time frame where you had Mike Rinder, Tommy Davis, and Monique. But remember, Monique's not really a Scientology mouthpiece. She's a lawyer, but she's not even a Scientologist. She's not a Sea Organization member. So she can just pretend not to know things. That's the thing about having one of your own members who's an actual Sea Org member, who is the president, because they can actually speak for the church instead of going in front of the cameras to not speak for the church. Yeah, I think between Mike Rinder and Tommy Davis and Monique Yingling, I'm thinking Monique Yingling is the one who has most recently made an appearance on behalf of Scientology. In fact, I know it was her. Macht mir doch egal. It never goes well for Scientology to do open interviews. Indeed. Was Heber at his son's funeral? Yes, I believe he was. And T. Dalton, thank you for the super sticker. Okay, good. That's what we got started so far. Let's carry on.
Well, you know why? No. You know why?
Why?
Because they find it's valuable. They find it's workable. It's not something they just have to believe, and that's the difference.
Right.
They have exact principles that they can apply in their lives. But whatever we do today, whatever you and I discuss, whatever the people out here see in terms of an audience, you make up your own mind, because it isn't what he says or I say or what else.
Okay.
You read a book, you make up your own mind. You determine whether it's valuable for you or whether it's not valuable. Right. That's the most valuable thing I can say about Scientology.
Now, may I say something to
Sure.
you? You know, I think this is valuable too. All right. No matter what they may say.
We're going back and forth, but we're going to get down to it, you guys.
Whatever we may say here, I would ask you to kindly answer my question.
Sure.
You have had not a few people defect from your church. They have run with great energy away from the Church of Scientology. They have said they have been pressured. There have been threats of blackmail. You get some very disturbed people, as we should not, as do all churches and religions. This is not an indictment.
You know this.
Yes, but the point, here's one of the raps against your church. You bring a emotionally disturbed person to be audited, and if they later decide maybe they want to get out, there have been instances within your church structure where they've been threatened with blackmail with the public release of the information that was said to the auditor in the session. Not unlike a priest threatening to tell out loud what my sins are.
And you're saying that from some publications that have gone into the media, okay? And I will tell you, in each one of those cases, it has been proven that that is an absolute lie. There is a complete confidentiality in the counseling sessions, and I've read those things, and I read those charges, and it's gone to court, and it's never been shown that that was the actuality. But those people are very few people who leave. There are 8 million members around the world, Phil,
including.
This is one of the things that kept getting Heber and Scientology in trouble, is going on live TV and claiming specific numbers of members, like 8 million, 10 million, 15 million. And the story, as told by Mike Rinder, is eventually David Miscavige scolded Heber and is like, Heber, what are you doing? You keep saying the same number year after year. You do these interviews and you keep saying the same number, which makes it look like we're not expanding. The number has to go up. Now, guys, make no mistake. There's never been more than 100,000 Scientologists in the entire world. Now, when I was in Scientology, I absolutely believed what they kept telling us, which is that there's millions and millions of members. There was never, at the peak, there was barely 100,000 active members. And today, it's closer to 20,000. What a great example of Heber just saying some bullshit.
Including John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Ann Archer.
But those people are very few people who leave. There are 8 million members around the world, Phil.
Including John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, Ann Archer. How about Tom Cruise?
Yes.
So you have your celebrity members.
You also have for the celebrities a celebrity building, I think, out there in Southern California. It's like a place where I can crash for the evening, and it's a nice place to stay. There it is right there. If I joined the church, would I be able to stay in one of those? How much for one of those rooms there?
Regular hotel price, just like any other hotel.
But you are proud to nourish the fealty of celebrities because
They influence the world, don't they?
Well, no, what it is Mr. Hubbard himself was a professional writer. He was an artist. And he said that a culture is as great as its dreams, and its dreams are dreamed by artists. He said it's important that the artist has an opportunity to advance himself, to use the technology of Scientology to do so. And the people who are celebrities come into Scientology because they're more spiritually inclined. I think you know this. They have a greater kind of awareness, but they also want to help people. And listen, Phil, you know, if anybody knows
what do I know?
The kind of world they have to go through out there, the drugs that are out there, the kind of...
So they need the extra help, all the help they can get because of the what's around them.
Guys, it's such a good answer. Like, I don't know, it just puts me in a good mood to see someone like take the heat and respond in a calm, friendly, jovial, conversational way. It's such a breath of fresh air. I got to tell you, like, you know, I've said many times, I do not think it's possible for Scientology to reverse the dwindling spiral that it's currently in a pretty severe death spiral. And I'm thankful that it is. And I've said, I don't think it's possible for Scientology to reverse its death spiral. But I tell you, if they really wanted to, and if Miscavige really wanted to, what he should do is find someone who is actually able to represent Scientology in a way that someone goes, well, this guy seems like a nice guy. What's wrong with Scientologists? But when you see Tommy Davis, and even before Tommy Davis, when you would see Mike Rinder in front of the cameras, there's nothing about how they interacted with the press that would make you go, well, the Scientologists seem like great people. What's the problem? And when the person, when the person or persons that you're putting out there to represent your group is someone that nobody would want to go have a beer with, you're never going to achieve acceptance in society. You're always going to look like you have something to hide. You're lying. It's a fraud. It's a scam. You guys are weird. You're up to no good. These are the good old days with Heber. Anyway, I'm just blown away, you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think of psychiatry?
What do I think of psychiatry? I don't think it's a science. I think that one has to take a look at, my concern is about the brutalities that they visit on people. I do not agree with electric shock, okay? I do not agree with lobotomies and so forth, because those are damaging activities. Now, you may disagree with me.
No, but lobotomies are no longer performed, and electric shock therapy accounts for 0.001% of psychiatry. You picked this red herring to malign
Great point.
Psychiatry. Incidentally, you've decided that psychiatry is not a science, but you insist that Scientology is a religion.
Scientology is a religion because it deals with the human spirit, and psychiatry says that man is an animal. I studied it, and they always said, you know, you're an animal. There is no such thing as the human spirit. I disagree with that.
Psychiatry is your biggest competitor.
Psychiatry is not a competitor because we don't deal with the insane.
That's why you got down on Prozac.
Well,
It was a competitive product. The more people take Prozac, the less people are going to need Dianetics.
Let me say this.
I mean, I think that's what you were fearful of.
I feel like almost every person they're cutting away to in the audience is a Scientologist.
That's what you were afraid of.
I'm not afraid of it. I've dealt with psychiatry, and I will tell you this. In California, a few years back, when I was testifying on this particular issue, they could give children shock, and were giving children shock. They could give a child...
you're saying that.
The psychiatrist, okay? In the mental institutions, okay? I dealt with that. And we have dealt with it around the world. I'm saying that that is a barbarism, and they should declare it a barbarism, and they should get rid of it. Phil, that's all I'm saying. And in terms of competition,
but the point is, it is a clever way to besmirch psychiatry, because psychiatry is a competitor. You feel about psychiatry the way Coca-Cola feels about Pepsi.
I got to jump in because, first of all, what he's saying there is totally true. But isn't it interesting what... Scientology is so small. It's interesting. Like to me, the statement, it's funny because I just said that what he said is true, and then I'm about to say that it's false. It's amazing. It's actually a false characterization to say that something as tiny as Scientology is actually a competitor to psychiatry. And it's a little weird that Scientology, it's almost like psychiatry isn't even a competitor to Scientology. Anyway, I feel like I can make an argument for in both ways on this. Yeah, for sure, L. Ron Hubbard originally was hoping that Dianetics would be embraced by the field of psychiatry as, like, you know, the poor man's psychoanalysis, and clearly he did crave acceptance from the field of mental health, and then he was rejected, and then that led to his whole change in his characterization of the mental health field. But I guess I guess when I see the characterization, there's a part of me that was like, boy, that's giving Scientology way too much credit to say they're a competitor. That's all. Anyway, just a thought that I had.
The difference is Coke doesn't do anything illegal or libelous to malign its competitor. You do. You do.
See,
you are
like
saying some very nasty things about psychiatry.
Well, I've said some bad things about the type of things they've done, Phil. And the reason I've said that is direct observation. And I think that if you look in the mental institutions of America,
Right.
and you look at what has been done, there's a lot of need for reform. Most of those people, about 65% of the people who go into those mental institutions, have a physical problem which is resolvable by a medical
Right.
action. They do not get physicals. They do not get full Mayo Clinic physicals.
Yeah.
If they would do that, Phil, I would walk away from it. It's
Yeah.
not being
Wow.
done, and it's an atrocity.
Okay.
Wow. How incredible. First of all, what Heber just said was something that was very socially acceptable to say, but a Scientologist would know that he's lying. But Heber's calm enough and relaxed enough to just say it, where he's basically like, if the people psychiatry treated went through this test and this test and this test, I would be totally okay with it. Wow. That he's even comfortable enough to actually say in public that there are circumstances in which he would be okay with psychiatry. You'd never be allowed to say that in this day and age in Scientology as a Scientology spokesperson. It would be attack, 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 attack. Okay, real quick, running through some more starred comments here. It's possible that this episode was from June 6, 1996. While the guest's name is not given, the topic is church's scare tactics, found on a list of Donahue episodes. Very cool. Failed pessimist. This is why Scientology never does interviews anymore. You see, I would argue that this is why Scientology should do more interviews, because people are already saying this stuff about Scientology, right? So sending a spokesperson in there to sit in the hot seat and have it said to their face isn't any worse than what people are already saying on media programs. Better to have a representative take the arrows and respond, calmly. And, that's my opinion. Tina Marie, watched this interview in real time as a young adult while considering joining the cult. Wow. Rashius, I don't know how to say this name. This is gold. Itchy Thomas, do you think Heber actually knew the real number of members or was reading off of a number that was fed to him? I think Heber did know the real number of members, and he was just citing the number he was told to cite. Machtmir Dachigal, do they count everyone that ever walked past a Scientology place? You're giving them way too much credit that they actually have a way of coming up with that number. But yeah, you'd pretty much have to count it that way in order to come up with such a high figure. Nero James, billion-year SP. By the way, has anyone seen the new Grant Cardone real estate ads on YouTube? I don't know, but I know Grant Cardone is running ads on my channel, and I posted screenshots of that to my community tab earlier this morning. Church of Satyrology. They say Heber is alive and well. That's great. But could someone tell him his voicemail has been full since the 90s? Xenu Golf Club. LRH was an artist, a con artist. I like it. Failed pessimist. I want to have a beer with Tommy Davis. Said no one ever. George Massey. Maybe Heber is alive, but pretty sure he's not well. Not in great shape based on last reports. Yeah, I think his physical problems are about as much as what you would expect from a man approaching near 90 years old. Church of Satyrology. They say Heber Jentzsch is the president of Scientology, but he's been missing longer than OT 9 and 10. Lori Plays. This is gold, Aaron. Does it matter to you? Not to me. Heber did a great interview, to be honest. All fake, but great interview. Samantha Askey. I'm sitting here totally amazed by this incredible footage. 8 million Scientologists. Heaven forbid. Nisa. This is nothing that I experience when I see my psychiatrist. That guy was crazy. Born Ancient, that's what makes me a proud SP. I'm a registered mental health nurse. I'll wear the SP badge with pride. Xenu Golf Club, 8 million members, yet they can't get thousands of hits on any of their social media videos. Machtmir Dachigal, no wonder Miscavige got rid of Heber. He was too calm, making Miscavige look erratic in his interview. George Massey, at least Heber was able to keep his TRs in. Major flunk when it came to Tommy Davis and Mike Rinder. So true. All right, let's keep going.
Something should be done.
Let's get back to Scientology. There's always another level you're encouraging me to go to, Reverend Jentzsch. And when I go to that other level, I'm going to have to pay more. And then pretty soon I may be on a vitamin regimen, clean out my body therapy program, and that's going to cost me money. Then you have tapes that you might want to sell me. Incidentally, you buy this book, Dianetics, and you artificially put it on the bestseller list.
Artificially?
Yeah, artificially. You spend millions of dollars going from bookstore to bookstore, buying Dianetics so it'll show up on the bestseller
Donahue was bringing the heat, folks.
list of the major
that is an absolute lie. That is an absolute lie.
It's been said. It's been said.
It's been said. And a lot of things have been said about a lot of things. This book has been on the bestseller list. This is the 45th year. It has come on the New York Times bestseller list 3 times in the last each decade.
Right.
No other book in history has done that.
By the way, that is exactly how Scientology got the book back on the bestseller list. They absolutely sent a Scientologist out to snap up all the copies at the bookstores. Donahue is 100% correct.
Phil, there are over 16 million copies of this book out there in the public mind.
Right.
This book is something, again, look, folks, why don't you just go, you look at it for yourself, and you read this book, you make up your own mind. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
I can't give you and say it's got to be, you know, you have to do it. You make up your own mind.
Are you still suing Time Magazine?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there was a couple of weeks
For what?
ago.
As you know, there was a 1991 cover story. Are you suing him for that?
Because it was an enormous libel and slander, and the religious friends of mine said it was the worst attack on a religion since the attack on the Mormons in the last century. It was completely unfounded, and it was a vicious assault on a religion, and it was unfounded. I mean, they used criminal people. Let's take one particular person. This reporter knew that the person he was talking to was a convicted criminal. He was in prison, and he had been convicted for obstruction of justice. What he did not tell the public in that article was that that individual was arrested by the FBI, and the very charge that he was trying to make against Scientology was something this person had created himself.
Yes.
That was omitted, and that's why it's gone forward, and why the courts have said, as the judge said too, a little while ago, I guess, recently, he said, look, he asked the counsel for the Time Magazine, he said, do you know what a half-truth is? And he said, yes, I do, Your Honor. He said, it's a lie. And he indicated there are lies in that article. That's why it's going forward.
All right, well, I'm sure you think this is a lie. Time Magazine, among other things, in its 1991 cover story, accused the Church of Scientology of buying massive quantities of its own books from retail stores to propel the titles onto the bestseller list. You ran full-page ads in such publications as Newsweek and Businessweek that call Scientology a philosophy, along with TV ads. You were, along with Sony and Pepsi, you sponsored Ted Turner's Goodwill games. Do you continue to retain the powerhouse public relations firm of Hill and Knowlton?
No, we do not.
Did you ever?
Yes, we did.
You don't need them anymore.
No, in fact, we ended our relationship with them over this particular article. We sued Hill and Knowlton, and that was settled out of court.
You sued?
They sued their own PR company.
Hill and Knowlton?
That's correct.
What's an engram? We have to break here, but let me understand an engram.
An engram is a moment of pain or unconsciousness where a person, he could be injured, he gets hit by a car, he goes unconscious. But while he's unconscious, he is still recording everything that's happening to him. And what does occur, if someone talks to him and says, for example, a fellow who fell, broke his legs, this is an actual case.
Guys, I'm going to rewind about 15 seconds so I don't interrupt this whole thing. What's happening right here is incredible. What's happening right here is why Scientology should have someone like Heber Jentzsch. The opportunity to, I mean, guys, this was back when Donahue was a huge deal. Live, network television, explaining on live TV, not on their freaking channel 320 on direct TV that no one's watching. Live on network TV, some of the most basic core Scientology beliefs. You can't pay for that kind of opportunity. And this is the value of having someone willing to sit down in the hot seat. And yet, like I said, I told Lex Friedman, Lex, you'll get 10 interviews with Vladimir Putin before you'll get one interview with David Miscavige. And I said, and put David Miscavige to the side. You won't even get any lower level representative of Scientology willing to sit down with you and have a long form chat. And he said, I disagree with you. And I said, I hope you're wrong. But watch, guys, Lex is going to sit down with Putin soon, and no one, not even a representative from Scientology, but just a Scientologist has been willing to go on and talk about Scientology with Lex Friedman. Anyway, this is the value of having the balls to sit down and take the heat. All right, let's go back a little bit.
He then became unconscious. And what does occur if someone talks to him and says, for example, a fellow who fell, broke his legs, this is an actual case, he then became unconscious. And what happened was the person was standing over him saying, he'll never walk, he'll never walk. He recovered physically, but he had a great deal of problems walking. Why? Because that subconscious recording of what had occurred where a person said he couldn't walk bothered him. When he got Dianetics and he was counseled, he recalled everything that happened to him, and it restored his capability. He got his energy back. There was nothing physically wrong with him. It was psychosomatic.
Time
This
plane
deals with psychosomatic diseases and problems.
Psychiatrists say, well, among other things, Time said, you'll speak to this, and then we must break. We're a little long. Today, the church invents costly new services with all the zeal of its founder. Scientology doctrine warns that even adherents who are cleared of engrams face grave spiritual dangers unless they are pushed to higher and more expensive levels. So once you clear me, I got to get cleared some more. And I say, okay, and now I go somewhere else. Now I'm going to pay. And pretty soon, you may be wanting to know how much of a mortgage I have on my house. You may be encouraging me to take out a second mortgage. It is not uncommon for your adherents to surrender six-figure checks to you. Women and other people in their senior years have surrendered a lot of money to you. I want to just have you focus on the central criticism of the Church of Scientology, and that is that you are a shell game, that you're a franchise operation, that you are less interested in helping people get cleared than you are in getting more money from them and more recruits from their neighborhood.
You know what's amazing to me with how Phil just framed that question is that he said he basically said you are less interested in actually getting people to clear than you are in getting their money. And the reason I thought that framing was amazing is because it actually even assumed that Scientologists actually believe going clear is a real thing. And he said, even if you guys believe this is true, you don't even care about helping people achieve that so-called real and beneficial thing. All you care about is their money. I just loved the approach because it was assuming that they do actually believe their own stuff is legitimate and they still don't care about it.
Phil? Okay. Yeah, please. You know, there are millions of people out there who are looking at when they look at this show, and they're going to say, you know what? That's not what Scientology is. You know why? Because they have used Scientology in their lives, number one. And number two, there are people who get something tremendously out of Scientology. One increases his capability in Scientology. He earns more. He learns more. He helps other people. We have taken over 100,000 people off of drugs. We have taken people whose educations have been destroyed using the technology of L. Ron Hubbard to deal with those issues. Those are tremendous. Yes, you can read Time magazine. I don't believe Time magazine. I tell you what, Phil, you know, there was something else about that. I noticed that Time magazine, the Pope brought this up the other day when he finally granted them an interview. You know what he said? You're the guys who made Hitler Man of the Year. You're the guys who said that Stalin was Man of the Year. In that article, Time magazine said that Hitler was the Teuton Messiah. I'm glad they don't like me.
No,
they were dead wrong.
No, you're taking.
They're dead wrong.
This is way out of context. This is now you're saying things that are demonstrably.
See, now that is out of context. When Time names someone Person of the Year, it's not an endorsement. Someone can be Person of the Year for negative reasons.
proved to be wrong.
No.
Time
Wait,
magazine does
wait.
not claim that a man of the year is a man of honor. Time magazine wants its man of the year to be known as the person who affected the greatest change, whether for good or evil, during the year. So there's a reason for Hitler and Stalin being Time Men of the Year. Now, the Times...
They call him the Teuton Messiah.
All right. Okay.
The Teuton Messiah.
Yeah.
The Teuton Messiah. Look, Phil.
Yes.
Let's not argue about
Judge
that.
Breckenridge, the New York Times reminded its viewers, a judge has deplored your church as repugnant and outrageous. You have been accused of using prostitutes to undermine the integrity and the reputation of Scientologist members who leave. You're very tough on people who leave or say they want to leave.
That particular case.
This is the New York Times.
Was okay. The New York Times continues, whatever. That particular case you're talking about, adjudicated in the courts. One judge making one statement, which was not part of a decision, by the way. It's part of a context of what he was said.
Right.
And there was discovered that was an animosity which tainted the jury because he was supposed to be unbiased.
Right.
Now, there are hundreds of cases around the world recognizing Scientology and recognizing that it is valuable.
You're a religion. You're a religion. You want it.
You're a religion too.
Well,
I'm
paying. If I'm a religion, I'm paying too much taxes.
No.
In fact, I'm going to. I mean, why not? Why don't we all be? Listen, if we ever had a reason, I don't think religion should get a tax deduction. I mean, if you love God, pay the price for it.
You know what? I totally agree.
I mean, come on. Otherwise, what Solomon's going to decide what's a religion? I've got a break here.
I totally agree.
I'm going to lose my job. You wouldn't want that to happen.
Wait a minute. Every religion could pay.
What?
And it just isn't that you select one and say he has to pay in the others. I agree.
All right.
Any religion could pay, but it should be equal. It is America.
Do you distribute booklets in public schools?
Can you believe he actually just agreed that he said, I agree. All religions should pay taxes, but you can't just select some out and say you don't have to pay taxes and you do. No Scientology spokesperson would ever admit to such a thing or agree to such a premise. Not that there are any Scientology spokespeople, but guys, didn't daytime TV used to be amazing? This is like phenomenal stuff.
Do I distribute booklets?
Does your Church of Science distribute booklets in public schools?
Do I distribute booklets?
Does your Church of Scientology distribute books in public schools?
There have been booklets by Scientologists on a non-religious moral code.
How about the Way to Happiness? Is not the Way to Happiness Foundation a part of the Church of Scientology?
No.
Yeah.
No.
That was one of Heber's first blatant lies.
There are Scientologists who put out the Way to Happiness.
You've got 3.5 million booklets in public schools. L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics for the third grade.
A non-religious moral code.
Wait a minute, you're a religion. You can't have it both ways.
No.
Now you're telling me it's not religion.
That's a damn good point, Phil. Why does Scientology call the Way to Happiness a non-religious moral code when it's a book of precepts laid out by a religion? I actually forgot that Scientology tried to pretend that the Way to Happiness was non-religious. Man, Phil Donahue's badass.
I'm saying that there is a non-religious moral code which Mr. Hubbard published, which has gone around the world, and which people have used. And they've used it around the world. They use it.
And you distributed it in public schools. 3.5 million copies of these.
3.5 million copies of a non-religious moral code?
What's wrong with that?
Honor your parents, don't steal, don't murder. What do you find wrong with that? Don't murder.
Is that all you're saying? Is that all you're saying?
I'm.
This audience wants it. Reverend Jentzsch gets to speak to real live people here when we come back in just a moment.
Wow, this is amazing. All right, some quick start comments here, and then we'll continue. Bonnie Lucas, yes, LRH was an artist, a BS artist. Lisa Clement, I've seen the Grant Cardone ads. They come up constantly. Anon says, I truly believed we had 8 million members back in the day. I believed it too. Poof 911, man, oh man, Donahue's staff researched their butts off. Lydia Von Stretchclaw, Phil has some serious inside sources. Does it matter to you? Not to me. Pay to play is not a religion. Macht mir doch egal. Humor and facts well served by Donahue, and he kept a straight face. Impressive. Church of Satyrology. Scientology should thank Heber for his Donahue appearance. It inspired a whole generation of SPs to ask more questions. Does it matter to you? Not to me. This is probably the best Scientology interview ever. Phil was one of the greats. And Bina Beck, 33, interviewers know the questions to ask now. Yeah, but I'll tell you, I mean, everything that Donahue is bringing up in this interview, like, the only way this interview could get worse for Scientology is if he started to ask about Xenu and the body thetans. I mean, hell, he just talked about, you know, setting people up and all kinds of stuff. So let's see. I'm curious to see if he does start to bring up the confidential materials. And let's see if Heber loses his mind the way Tommy Davis did when people would try to bring it up in interviews.
L. Ron Hubbard quite truly has sold an awful lot of books. He was born in Nebraska in 1911 and died in 1986. He was not seen very rarely in the last years of his life. He was a pulp fiction writer, wrote sci-fi novels, and suddenly hit on what he called Dianetics. One thing led to another, and now Reverend Jentzsch heads a worldwide religion. I say religion because the IRS said so. It should also be said that Germany recently declared.
Now, hold on. Is that not okay? The girl on the front left, I thought that was one of the women involved in the Lisa McPherson Trust, but I don't think that's her.
The IRS said so. It should also be said that Germany recently declared that you weren't a religion.
No, Germany did not declare, and that is a lie, because I'm sorry, you saw it in the news, but what happened was there was just a simple article.
But you say I misspoke rather than lie. It's
no, I'm sorry. Phil, look.
Yes, go ahead. So it's not true. So it's a religion in Germany, is it?
There are 63 decisions in the courts in Germany that recognize that Scientology is a religion according to the Constitution of Germany.
Right.
Okay? And that really is established. We're talking, you know.
I'm not prepared to argue
that.
I accept your disagreement is on the record, and you've clarified for us.
Okay.
Here is L. Ron Hubbard, rarely seen. Deceased now over a decade. Here's a statement from Mr. Hubbard.
Scientology is for an able guy like you or like me, able to function in life, able to make his own way, does his work, and so forth. All right, that's the man that should be helped. That's the man you should help out, because that fellow is having a hard time. And he's got his problems. Now, if you put him in a position where his intelligence is up to handling his problems, where his ability to confront life is increased, you'll find out that he is better. He can better his environment. He can take care of his family better. He can do his job better. He can live better, and so forth. And that's all we want in Scientology.
Well, who wants in here?
Oh, they're going to take questions from the audience. Wow.
I just want to know what your counselors, what kind of training that they receive that they are able to counsel with the people that come in. How do we know that they don't have an ulterior motive? How do we know that they are capable of counseling with someone who has problems?
That's a good question. Our counselors are highly trained. It's equivalent to 4 years of college. And I myself were trained extensively in that. I've done both. I've done college and I've done the counseling. And they are trained to not evaluate for the person. They are trained to be very well understanding of what the mind is and how the mind operates. They have a very precise way of dealing with a person so that they can get exactly to those problems. They are also trained not to tell a person what he should think about what's happening to him, not the idea that somebody else is responsible. Those sort of things. They are, I would say, the highest quality trained. I did college, and I did more intensive training to become a minister and a counselor than I ever did in 5 years of college.
We will meet.
Check it out, guys. I think this is one huge difference between having someone like Heber represent Scientology and having these young, born and raised in Scientology, I'll even, Hitler Youth type people representing Scientology. Is when you have a spokesperson who was born and raised in Scientology, practically born and raised on staff or in the Sea Org, never finished high school, never went to college, never spent time in the real world, they don't know how to relate to people in the real world. And they don't understand that the weird sort of intensity that Sea Org members have and the elitism that is programmed into Sea Org members doesn't translate in the real world. And I think that's one of the reasons Heber was so amazing at what he did. I think he was actually a Mormon preacher. He was something in the Mormon church. He wasn't just a Mormon. He was something like, or was he, anyway, Heber Jentzsch knew how to relate to people in the real world. No one in Scientology management today can do that. They do not know how to relate. Okay, here we go.
Two of your most thoughtful and faithful devotees, a married couple who claim Scientology has made them happier in their marriage and out. And we'll meet them in just a moment.
Oh my God. They're actually going to bring people out?
I really was. I was a total screw up. And I was so drugged out that I was, fairly cuckoo. So I consider the fact that Scientology did save my life.
As part of our agreement for this program, we have accepted the conditions of your appearance here, Reverend Jentzsch. We are presenting no one on our stage who has a grievance with Scientology, and so that role is left, alas, to me. Barbara Wiseman joins us with her husband, Bruce. You have 3 children. You've been married for 15 years from Glendale, California, and you're a proud member of Scientology, of the Church of Scientology.
Guys, okay, first of all, it's insane that the Scientology couple they're bringing out are 2 people that work for Scientology's Office of Special Affairs. On top of that, their daughter, Kendra, is one of the people who's left Scientology and helped start the ex-Scientology Kids website with Jenna Miscavige, and I'm going to forget the third young woman who helped start that website. But I figured I'd at least throw that out there.
You were ill, were you not, when you presented yourself first to this organization? Is that right?
No.
No. Okay.
No, I was quite healthy, actually. But probably what you're referring to, Phil, is that I had told your producer that Scientology actually saved my life.
But you weren't ill.
No, actually, what happened is that about 10 years after I got into Scientology, I decided that I wanted to do this program that you had mentioned of getting the built-up toxins out of the body. And it's a program that Mr. Heber developed that is fantastically successful. And I wanted to do this program. Before anyone does it, they go and get a physical exam just to make sure that there's nothing physically wrong with them, seriously wrong. And I found out, unbeknownst to me when I walked in the door, that the doctor told me I had 2 years to live. At that point, I had arterial sclerosis, and he sent me to 2 other doctors who said,
I'll take things that never occurred for 500, Alex. So there was nothing wrong with her in any way, shape, or form. She was going to do the Purification Rundown, which is Scientology's sauna, vitamin, sweat out program to detoxify your body. And you go into the doctor, and they're like, you have 2 years to live. By the way, if the doctor actually told that to you, they would never let you start the Purification Rundown. So anyway, this is a total bullshit story.
Said that, yes, you have this, and go home and write your will because you have a very short period of time to live. So I talked them into letting me go ahead and do this program by Mr. Hubbard. And within 3 weeks, when I went back to the doctor, I finished Mr. Hubbard's program. When I went back to the doctor, I no longer had the arterial sclerosis. It was so completely gone that he thought he must have made an error in his diagnosis, even though 2 other doctors in a laboratory had verified that diagnosis.
How long?
And that's why you should join Herbalife, because these protein shakes saved my life. Scientologists giving their success stories is exactly like every single person in an MLM working on their story to recruit you into their pyramid scheme.
Is this program of getting rid of toxins and
it varies, but it's anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for most people.
And is it like do you go to a place all day long, or do you stay there overnight? Is it like a...
No, it's a 5-hour-a-day program. You go and they give you the vitamins, you do sauna, sweat out, you do some exercise.
Is that expensive, Mrs. Wiseman?
No, well, it depends on what you consider expensive.
The Purif costs $2,500. Let's see what she says.
Costs $1,200 usually.
Oh, see, now here's how you know that she's bullshitting. Heber Jentzsch earlier was honest about the cost of auditing, and it's pretty much the exact same today. She's lying about the Purif. In fact, there is a chance that the Purif is actually $5,000 today, but I'm going to go with $2,500 because I'm just trying to be conservative.
$1,200? $1,200?
$1,200
For how many sessions?
to save my life.
Per session. That's $1,200 per session.
No.
$1,200 for the purification program.
And how long is that? 3 weeks?
3 to 4 weeks.
$1,200 I get
wait a minute.
a month?
Now, wait a minute. You know what has been found? Scientists have been analyzing this and showing
Phil's head is about to explode.
that the residual drugs that stay in the body and the residual chemicals cause a disturbance for the individual, and they can cause all kinds of psychosomatic problems. That has been discovered and proven that Mr. Hubbard was correct about that. And it does help a person to get rid of those residual drugs. You get about 2.5 ounces of chemicals in your food a week in this country.
Yeah.
And that does have a tiny bit of residual. It does affect an individual.
Right.
And you remove that, you do feel healthier.
Yes, but now we're talking biochemical, anatomical, pathology clinic, which is not a religion.
No.
Get him, Phil.
You can't take the toxins off me and call yourself a religion. And you've got several of these around the world. Around the world. You're not only a religion, you're a healthcare agency. You're a vitamin seller.
No.
You've got tapes on how I can get better ratings for my television program, how I can do better in my business. This isn't religion. This is marketing.
Religion is,
Oh my
religion
God.
is when you're looking at the spiritual nature of man, you're dealing with the very basis of what mankind.
And Heber just keeps his calm and he's cool as a cucumber. I'm telling you, they need another Heber.
Is about. And each of us is a spiritual being. Whether we know, it isn't that you have a spirit, that you are a spiritual being. That's what Scientology is about.
Yeah.
We recognize that you're that. So it deals with the whole quality of life. You deal with the very essence of life when you recognize the human spirit. I make no criticism of your religion. I make no criticism of anyone else's religion here.
Yeah.
I think it's important, Phil, that in this day and age, we not assault each other's religious beliefs. A person has a right to live his religion and to do it in America and other countries.
I have not assaulted your religious beliefs. I have questioned your marketing strategies. I have wondered whether you're more interested in money than in the well-being of your members. And you deny this, but significant numbers of your members have left your church to blow some very loud whistles on what they said was pressure, ridicule, spying, wiretapping. All kinds of hostile, angry, paranoid activity has been the center of accusations against your church.
Phil, I can count those people on about 2 hands, and they make a lot of noise, and you will find that in any religion, there will be people who are apostates who have very negative things to say. And people who leave, okay? But
Yes,
people have a right to leave.
There's probably not a religion in the world that doesn't have some people that were, that
are defectors. That's true.
There's 8 million Scientologists around the world.
Right. You know, I speak to spiritual issues on this show. I do. I'm serious. We talk about things having to do with the spirit and your well-being. We talk about your future and how you'll be a happier person. I want
to jump in here. It is amazing to I'm reminded of something that Mark Bunker has said when he was out there protesting Scientology in the early days of the Lisa McPherson Trust in Clearwater, Florida. And he would say to Scientologists something to the effect of, I am protesting for you. I want Scientologists to be treated better. I want the abuse to stop. And the first time I ever heard Mark Bunker say that, I was like, wow, that's an amazing thing to consider, because technically that is true. That technically the people protesting the abuses in Scientology are actually advocating for Scientologists to be treated better. And here's why I'm mentioning that, because when I sit here and I see Phil Donahue in the early 90s basically saying, why is Scientology so damn expensive? In a certain respect, he's sort of saying Scientologists shouldn't have to pay so much for this thing that you guys claim is so amazing. And I'm instantly reminded of the fact that that's what a Scientologist would say as well. Scientologists routinely ask the question, because Scientologists want to get as many of their friends and family into Scientology as possible, but they know how freaking expensive it is. And so many Scientologists say something like, why does it have to cost so much? It'd be so much easier to get people in if it wasn't so damn expensive. And the answer is always routinely something about, the cost. It costs a lot to do this and that, and the marketing and the war chest and all this stuff. And I just wanted to comment on the fact that to the Scientologists out there, this is so easy to see if you take a moment to like open your eyes and your ears and your mind to it. Scientology has more money in the bank now than it did when it was actually fighting for its survival. Okay, back when the tax, when they had $1 billion tax bill and they were very much at risk of, shutting down the whole operation. Scientology has more money now when it has no risk to its survival than it did back then. And yet Scientology prices are still sky high. And because Phil is correct. Scientology cares more about money than it does about achieving the aims of Scientology. And clearing the planet. And if they actually cared about achieving the aims of Scientology and clearing the planet, it wouldn't be so damn expensive. I was just kind of, it just struck me that Phil is actually almost arguing on behalf of Scientologists, which is exactly what Mark Bunker said he was doing when he was out there protesting. And I just wanted to share that.
Many countless people have been in this arena. Why can't I be a religion? Do you have any idea the money I could save? What's the difference? What's the difference between what I do and what you do in the IRS religion tax deduction sense?
The difference is this, that they realize, looking at all religions, and recognize the spiritual nature of man, and that Scientology does have a way for an individual to determine his own spirituality. That's what we deal with. And again, whatever we say here, please, you make up your own mind.
Really?
That's Scientology.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Yes.
You decide.
For the last 21 years, it's meant everything to me. It's meant my sanity and my happiness.
It's sort of sad to consider that both Scientology women sitting on either side of John Travolta have now passed away early from cancer, which is incredibly common in Scientology due to their general anti-medicine stance. Oops, sorry.
And I'm just glad I found it. I hope everybody
That's, of course, Kelly Preston on the left and Kirstie Alley on the right.
finds it at one point.
Patricia Jones, we thank you for joining us from Washington, D.C. You are the...
I did not know Pat Harney was in this video. Oh, my God. I'm going to share something with you later about Pat Harney.
president of the founding Church of Science of Washington. Is this right?
Scientology in Washington, D.C. Yes, Phil.
I see. And you're with Reverend Alfreddie Johnson, a Baptist minister from Los Angeles.
Yes.
So you can praise Jesus and be a member of the Church of Scientology.
Well, actually, what I am is a Christian Baptist minister out of Compton, California, South Central, who utilizes the study technology of L. Ron Hubbard. That's what I do. And yes, I believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. So I found that the technology that he offers actually helped me to help inner city kids to learn how to study and to overcome the barriers to study.
Right. You get high marks for that, as does Miss Jones. You really feel very proud of the work you're doing with regard to anti-drug programs within the inner city. Do I understand some of the work that you do?
Yes, I feel very proud. And I want to say one thing to you, Phil, because I've been listening out here for a while, and this is my religion.
What is now?
Scientology. Scientology is my religion. It's what I do. It helps me in my life. It helps me with my kids.
Right.
I have 3 boys. I have to raise them at this time. And I really want people to understand that we're dealing with my religion.
Okay, I cannot help it. I have to show you guys literally 3 nights ago when I went downtown in Clearwater, Florida. Scientology's Welcome Center doors were open, even though they usually shut those doors as soon as they have any idea that I'm in the area. And who was sitting at the desk but Pat Harney? She goes by Pat Harney now, I guess. Back in this interview, she was going by Pat Jones. But let's see what Pat had to say.
That's why I'm not in here.
Hold on. Here, I'm going to refresh it. Here we go.
Hey, how you doing, Pat? Good to see you. It's been a while. That's why I'm not in here. I'm in the
You can't hear her, but she said you're not allowed in here.
public area.
Even though the sign says all are welcome.
Yes. Oh. Give Dave my best. Say hi to Amber.
I was, of course, referring to David Miscavige, and I was referring to Amber, the woman who normally mans the desk in that center. Okay, let's get back to Pat on the Donahue Show.
And to remove the negative and the insults and, you know, some of what
we haven't been insulted. We've been raising issues with which Reverend Jentzsch is very, very familiar.
Yeah, but
so please don't call me an insult.
No. I just feel I've experienced this before, so I quite understand.
Right.
But I just wanted to bring that point
Right.
home, that I really want people to understand that what Scientology is for me. It's a day-to-day religion that I use and I apply in my life to help me, my kids, and in my community. The Drug-Free Marshals Program.
And actually, I want to point out that yet again, you have every single Scientologist who's appearing on stage is a staff member of the Office of Special Affairs, which handles the legal, media, PR, and dirty tricks. They will never just let a normal Scientologist who has not been heavily coached just speak freely. And that's the thing about Scientology. They do not want Scientologists just being honest, speaking from the heart and from the hip. No. That will never work for Scientology.
Getting drugs out of schools. That's important.
Yes, ma'am.
As a practicing Southern Baptist, I wonder what the Church of Scientology believes in. Where will you go when you die?
Uh-oh.
Where will you go when you die?
Where do you go when you die?
Well, Scientology believes that you are a spiritual being and you go on. We believe that a person has more than one life, and that is an Eastern concept. And we also believe that a person who comes into Scientology, we are pan-denominational. You can come in from all religions, but a person is a spiritual being. He does go on, but he has other lives.
Don't mention the implant stations. Don't mention the between lives implant stations.
There is no deity within the structure of Dianetics or the Church of Scientology.
There is a supreme being.
There is.
And there is a recognition of the supreme being, and that has been since day one.
Right.
See, now that's his second big lie.
So if the Reverend here worships Jesus Christ.
There's been a lot of lies, but they were, I don't know. For me, that's the second big lie.
As the Son of Man.
Does
not disqualify him from.
Is a recognition of the supreme being, and that has been since day one.
Right. So if the Reverend here worships Jesus Christ as the Son of Man, that does not disqualify him from accepting the totality of the tenets of the Church of Scientology.
It does not disqualify him from utilizing the technology of L. Ron Hubbard as he sees fit. He perceives the supreme being as he perceives it. I don't tell him what that is. I don't evaluate for him on that.
And whatever he may think does not discount his membership in your church. There he is.
Well, Phil, let me say this to you. I have found in my relationship, first of all, I'm the founder of the World Literacy Crusade. And I think that the most important thing in terms of why we started the World Literacy Crusade is...
For the record, Reverend Alfreddie Johnson and his partner and some of their children were found guilty of massive insurance fraud using the World Literacy Crusade and Scientology's so-called purification rundown. Reverend Alfreddie Johnson has turned his relationship with Scientology into a massive fraudulent money-making scheme. And yeah, he's always been in it for the money.
The ridiculous education and the failure of education on the part of kids in the inner city. Many of them are illiterate. We feel that poverty, ignorance, disease, and crime is prevalent in the inner city, and it's due to illiteracy. Mr. Hubbard has a very, very effective tool that he used in his study techniques. It actually teaches our kids to overcome the barriers to study. And this is what has caused many of the problems in the inner city now.
Do you use Scientology material in public schools?
Do I use them?
Or is it facilitated? Do you pass it out, or is someone doing that?
No. The study techniques are non-religious. Anybody, you can be a Muslim or Buddhist.
But you would use.
Isn't that an interesting flex? It honestly didn't occur to me until Donahue was kind of pointing it out here. It's a weird flex for a group that calls itself a religion to keep bragging about all of their non-religious programs. Scientology craves acceptance, but they call themselves a religion. But they don't really want you to think they're a religion because they've got all these non-religious programs. It just never dawned on me until right now just how weird of an approach that is for a so-called religion.
Scientology material for the study techniques, would you not?
No, it's not.
It's all out of your head?
religious.
There's no books, there's no pamphlets, there's no rule, there's no structure?
No, it's not Scientology material, is what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you, there are study techniques. I want you to understand me clearly. Study techniques. There are 3 barriers to learning that Mr. Hubbard deals with, and he actually, or the techniques actually train individuals how to overcome those barriers. And that's what we're interested in actually helping kids in the inner city.
This audience, with its hand in the air, will be on the air when we come back in just a moment.
What are your qualifications exactly to be the head of Scientology? You're telling us that everyone else is wrong in terms of the medical fields and whatever, that you know better than they do.
The Church of Scientology stands by these.
Wow, there it is in writing, claiming 8 million members. Remember, guys, they're closer to 20,000. Oops, here we go.
Bulletins, 17 million copies of Dianetics have been sold. The church claims that it is the #1 bestseller in Japan. It's has 8 million members worldwide, a number that has been challenged. But of course, how do you prove anything like this? And Scientology is celebrating its 40th anniversary. Yes.
Hi, I know you told me to be brief, but I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Reverend Jentzsch, what are your qualifications exactly to be the head of Scientology? You're telling us that everyone else is wrong in terms of the medical fields and whatever, that you know better than they do. Exactly. What are your qualifications?
First of all, I don't say that. I say that any person who is ill must go see a doctor.
Oh my God. He didn't even deny being the head of Scientology, which probably got him in a lot of trouble with Miscavige.
In Scientology before he gets any counseling, and that may not be known. What are my qualifications? I've been a member for 28 years in Scientology.
Sorry,
Now, any person who is...
Exactly. What are your qualifications?
First of all, I don't say that. I say that any person who is ill must go see a doctor in Scientology before he gets any counseling, and that may not be known. What are my qualifications? I've been a member for 28 years in Scientology.
No. Educational qualifications.
My educational qualities? Well, qualifications, first of all, I've graduated from the university. I had 5 years of college.
Degree?
Pardon? Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. I studied philosophy. I studied a lot of things. I studied religion as well while I was in college.
What are your degrees?
Pardon?
What are your degrees?
I said I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of Utah. Hang on. I've studied Scientology, though, and I have studied it more extensively than I ever studied in college because it's a philosophy. It's a new philosophy. It is
a school and major in Scientology.
Pardon?
Could I go to a school and major in Scientology and get a degree in Scientology? Are there ministers
I don't know whether you
that
can
go
do
to
that. I
school
think you
for
go and
this?
you can study
How
Scientology.
qualified are these people to do this, to help people? You need qualified people. If you are going to make such an impression, then you should be qualified as well as everyone else that follow you.
You want to say something?
Go ahead.
The folks that do the Scientology and Dianetic counseling are very, very highly trained. I have a graduate degree with honors. I'm a former chairman of the history department, and I've trained as a Scientology counselor.
But I don't think I can do
She doesn't think she can do it.
One of the principal tenets of Scientology is it's not something you do unless you want to do it. You don't believe anything unless it's true for you.
Yes.
The point I was trying to make is I've got graduate degrees with honors, and I've also trained as a Scientology counselor, and I can tell you it is very, very exacting and very precise and very workable, ma'am.
May I say that before our program, we asked our audience if anyone in our audience was a member of the Church of Scientology, and you raised your hand.
I know, brave, wasn't it?
Well, why? I mean...
No, well...
Does anybody know who this woman is? If so, put it in the live chat. I'll try to keep an eye out.
You're in there with John Travolta?
I know, pretty exciting.
Yeah, Tom Cruise?
My point here is this. Very few people who have any kind of background in therapy are also in Scientology. I happen to have both. I was an occupational therapist. I worked in the field of mental health. I worked in the field of physical...
An occupational therapist does not work in the field of mental health.
disabilities. I took all the anatomy, kinesiology, and every other course you can think of.
Yeah.
I'm a graduate of Tufts University, and never in all of that training and all of that interning and all of that work did I have one iota of the understanding of where a human being really, really operates and what he really needs to be helped and how to help him till I got into Scientology, and that was 20 years ago. So I have both viewpoints very clearly.
Are you
as
an auditor?
professional. Yes, I am.
You are.
I am.
So that I could come to you and you could, and we would have, what, we spend an hour?
Depended on what we were doing.
And you would bring the applied techniques of Scientology as originated by L. Ron Hubbard to helping me erase my reactive mind. Is that right?
Yes, I could do that.
Because if I can get rid of all those pictures of the bumps and the
Bumps
pains
in
of
the road.
life, I free myself to be who I am. Just to repeat what I understand to be the thrust of this therapeutic effort on the part of the Church of Scientology.
That's certainly one aspect.
What if he can't afford it?
What if he can't afford it, this young, impertinent man asks here in our front row.
Well, listen, impertinent man. Minimum, you paid $1.25 to get a subway token to get here, and another $1.25. That's if you live here, right?
Yeah.
The book is what, $5? You get one book, and two of you can learn everything you need to know to audit your way to clear.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
I was very familiar with the technology applied scholastics developed by L. Ron Hubbard, which is basically a learning.
The irony of Ann Archer's son, Tommy Davis, having been the last and failed spokesperson for Scientology.
Technology that teaches people how to study and how to learn. And I knew that that worked because I raised my children.
A man like Mr. Hubbard understood the dilemma of that various groups and various people don't know how to read and write to a far further frightening extent than we even comprehend.
This is more than $5, isn't it?
This is $7.
$7.
$7. But you can
$7.
go to a library and you can pick up the book and read it for yourself.
With only
okay?
less than 2 minutes left, why don't you take, since you've been certainly brave enough to present yourself here to this inquiry, what would you want to say? I want you to think you were treated fairly here.
I just want to say one thing. I found Scientology one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in my life. I studied extensively. I studied a lot of different philosophies. I studied all kinds of religions. When I came to Scientology for the first time, I could find out who I am. Where am I? Where am I going? What's it all about? But most importantly, I could help somebody else. I've worked in the prisons. I've worked in all kinds of strata of life. We, as Scientologists, are very interested in helping people. That's why we're an international organization. That's why we're all over the world. But look, you make up your own mind. The most important thing I can say to you is, it isn't what I say. It isn't what Phil says. It isn't what you've read anywhere else. Read the books. You make up your mind. You determine if it's for you. That's the most important thing. Scientology works.
I would just like it to be made known to the people here. I live in Toronto. I just recently retired from the Metropolitan Toronto Police Force. Some years ago, we executed search warrants on the Church of Scientology in Toronto, very controversial. As a result of that, this is well documented in criminal records. They had members of the Scientology Church become civilian members of the local police forces, Metropolitan Toronto, the Ontario Provincial Police, Peel Region Police, Durham Region Police, got jobs, came on and worked in the records section and was caught and arrested for divulging confidential information on people.
People who would be their enemies as they perceive them.
Exactly. I'm not speaking on behalf of the police now, but I just retired from it after 33 years as a detective.
Those people violated the law, and those people went to prison, and they should have gone to prison, and I would have taken them to prison because they did violate the law. They are out of this church, and we removed those people. And the current management of church were the ones who removed those people. They should have gone to prison because they violated the law. You are absolutely right.
Very controversial.
Yes, it was, I'm sure. And
Yeah. Everything that's ever been done wrong on behalf of Scientology was done by people operating on their own without permission, outside of the rules, and have been expelled. Yes, I don't think so.
And we'll be back in just a moment.
Very spiritual person, but I do not consider myself extremely religious. And what I've heard from you is that all this about spirituality.
Let's go.
I'm religious. I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual.
My question is that you say that you take people and you make them forget their problems of the past. I've always taught my children to remember your mistakes because you're a better person for them and you learn.
Dianetics helps you remember, not forget, man.
Yeah, so you wanted to say, finally.
You can remember those problems. You do remember the problems, but they no longer are reactively hitting you and forcing you not to accomplish your goals and upsetting you. You do remember, you're right.
May I ask you to join me in thanking all these guests for services?
Wow. There you go, guys. The good old days when Scientology had people competent enough to deal with the press. And I consider this to be the press, even if it's not actually a news show. It's like, you know, I don't know. I guess the negative information about Scientology is already out there. You know, it's funny, like, why would, let's just think about this. Let's just chew on this for a second. Why wouldn't Scientology send someone to go and have a long form interview without any preconditions, without asking for final edit authority with someone like Lex Fridman? The way I explained it to Lex is that, I said the reason is because of the confidential nature of Scientology, and that Scientology might be able to bullshit its way through a 15-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute interview with an entertainment journalist. But sitting down to do a long-form chat with someone who's well-researched and well-prepared and is going to ask them about things like Lisa McPherson and Shelley Miscavige and Whitney Mills and Kyle Brennan and Xenu and the Body Thetans and all this kind of stuff, that they're, you know, that when it comes to the confidential levels, they're not even allowed to acknowledge that these things are true, but they're not willing to talk about them. Anyway, I sort of explained it in a way that they back themselves into a corner due to the confidential nature of things, and then not even being allowed to admit certain things. But all the reasons I gave to Lex Fridman for why no one from Scientology would ever talk to him, all those reasons would have still been true back in 1995 when Heber Jentzsch went on this program. And yet Heber Jentzsch still went on the program. If Scientology had someone as competent at talking about Scientology as Heber Jentzsch, they could, should, and dare I say would, send someone out to do long form content to try and make Scientology more palatable to the people. I don't think David Miscavige actually intends to expand Scientology anymore. I think he used to. I think he's given up on it. I think David Miscavige knows there is no way to reverse the dwindling spiral of Scientology's membership. And I think he has pivoted to a strategy of just trying to raise as much money as possible from the ever dwindling membership. And he has figured out how to do that for the time being. It's obviously unsustainable. You can't continue to raise more money from a smaller and smaller group of people. But, you know, Miscavige doesn't have to keep the shell game going forever, because he's not going to live forever. He's already 60 some years old. Is he 65 by now? I don't know. He doesn't have to worry about what happens to Scientology after he dies. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I thought Heber did a great job. Sergeant Mitch says, by the way, we do have over 8 million people in the non-Church of Scientology and close to 1 million of the teaching of SPTV. Yes, we definitely have more people watching SPTV than there are people in Scientology, but Scientology has more money, no doubt about it. All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging out with me. I've actually got a whole bunch more I'm going to do today. That's why I wanted to get started early. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.